Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else, don't make me turn this website around.
We've got Danny in North Carolina. Danny, thanks for calling in. Welcome to Hang Up. What are you hung up on?
Hey, Matt, how's it going? A little bit of a deviation from political talk, but I'm not sure if that was orchestrated or not. I just wanted to talk about the U.S. education system. As you can probably tell, I'm not originally from the U.S. I'm a high school teacher in North Carolina at the moment, and I'm from Australia originally. I've been here for about 4 years. I've taught in Australia, the UK, and Japan before coming over here. And I'm just a little bit, I guess, baffled in general about, the state of things, I guess, in North Carolina. And I understand that it varies state to state over here, but I just kind of wanted to pick your brain and get your insights on, a couple of things with regards to that.
Sure.
So I guess I wanted to ask if you could change, I guess, like one thing. What's the biggest thing you would change? I know that's a super broad question with regards to the education system in general. And do you expect that to have any, a specific targeted, like, practical outcome? Is it like sort of funding? Is it anything like, curriculum? Is it restructuring of like a child's school day, something like that? I don't know. I just kind of wanted to pick your brain there, I guess.
Yeah, you're going to be a little disappointed, I think, because, as you're someone who actually works in the field. And while I have my sister-in-law as a teacher and I have other, friends and family members who are teachers, and I do have thoughts, I'm not sure what the one biggest thing that we could actually do is. The ones that I want to see changed, I want to see more of a focus on teaching how to think rather than what to think. And by that, I want courses in critical thinking and skepticism. And I don't think they should just merely be elective. I think they should be taught as the foundations of the scientific methods, and the cornerstone of all reasonable thought, that teaching kids how to reason about things and how to explore the claims and evidence will go a long way towards undermining a great many things. I'd almost, this kind of violates my rule because it's kind of teaching about what to think. I almost wish there was a debunking course, even though skepticism isn't about debunking. There are things we can debunk. And so to teach kids that, how we know homeopathy is bullshit. That's been straight up tested over and over and over and over and over again. How we can know that, the position of the stars didn't have any significant impact. And that's something you can address in like one word: twins. Think about it a bit there. I wish that one of the problems in the U.S. is that it has to do with school books, which is Texas is a single adoption state. So when the State Board of Education in Texas decides this is the school book, that is what is true for everybody in Texas. And because Texas buys so many school books, there are other states that just get whatever textbook Texas has. And so once the decisions are made here in Texas, it branches out to other states as well. So when we had creationist Don McElroy on the State Board of Education, who was preaching about how somebody needs to stand up to the experts, and it's going to be him, what we ended up with are school book criteria that don't properly prioritize science, that don't speak fairly on social studies issues and any number of things. And those school books end up in other states. But I want to hear from you, as an actual teacher in North Carolina, what is it you think needs to change? Because you're in the trenches. I'm not.
Mate, this is where I kind of feel like I'm in a bit of an uphill battle and I'm just sort of going in circles. So I'm like, for example, at the moment I'm teaching entirely virtually. We're making as many, I guess, accommodations, trying to be as lenient as we can, and everything. Obviously, it's a really difficult time for a lot of people, and it's uncharted waters. But I mean, just even something. This isn't even like a big sort of goalpost, not goalpost, a big sort of major sort of policy thing here, but just stuff like it's getting to the end of the quarter, and I'm always getting that sort of last minute, 2 days before the deadline, kids sending me emails like, hey, what assignments do I need to turn in? And then the principal sending out these emails like, right, well, you need to make sure you're passing everybody for, because we need to make sure we get our funding this way, yada, yada, that sort of stuff. And that kind of just boggles my mind in a sense.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily
they're
about,
actually telling you
specific curriculum you're teaching, but yeah.
they're actually just dictating, hey, you're going to pass this many students.
Yes, generally speaking. Now I'm lucky. I'm at a pretty good school, and that doesn't necessarily happen. But I have taught at a couple of other schools over here where that does. And as far as I'm aware, like, you speak to any teacher over here, you basically get, the top down, if not stated explicitly, heavily implied. Listen, what are you doing to get this kid's, grade up? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, sort of thing there. And I get that's not just, they are ultimately trying to do the best they can, because it's a vicious cycle. We don't pass the kids, funding drops, etc. So everybody loses out there. But then again, if we're pushing everybody through, they may not be ready to move through. Have they really learnt the content, etc.? I don't know. So that's just an example that's, kind of grinding my gears. But I just want to go back to what you were saying about the idea of skepticism, teaching that explicitly as like a course. I try to throw as much of that into, like I said, I'm an English teacher. I try to throw that as much into my courses as I possibly can. But I feel like there's not really enough time for that, because, where you sort of alluded to it in Texas there, you're sort of dictated, this is the sort of texts you need to teach. And a lot of the standards that we're supposed to be aiming towards don't really delve into anything like, constructing a really sound logical argument. There's nothing in there about,
Right.
syllogistic thinking, critical thinking, or anything like that. I mean, there's a couple of buzzwords, but it's really not paid a lip service. The assessments, the end of course exams and tests that they take are all about sort of like, arbitrary stuff.
It seems like, your primary objections are that,
Sorry, go ahead.
at the base, when we're talking about what curriculum should we be teaching, the schools have the curriculum and basically go to the teachers and they're like, teach it, make them learn. And yet we all know you can't make someone learn. All you can do is facilitate and encourage them to care, to try to learn. If someone is dead set against it, or, it's like there are kids with countless issues, some of them with regard to intellectual capacity, others with issues with their home life, countless things that can impact whether or not a student is learning and paying attention, or whether they value any of this stuff. I was dumped into, gifted and talented classes when I was very young, and was just at this time, one of the most common things was just to make fun of the smart kids. You guys are the bookworms and blah, blah, blah. And so there was a lot of baggage there. And because of that, and because I was good enough that I could pay no attention and do no homework and still pass. And I didn't have any motivation to do anything more than just the bare minimum to pass for a while. Any student who was next to me who was trying to do the same things I was doing, the majority of them would have failed out. And if the school system is about, let's teach for the test, we are failing to create thinkers. We're creating mimics, and the second they realize that they no longer have to retain the mimicked information that they were tossing out for the test, that information's gone. Like, I took 2 years of Spanish as electives, and I can muddle through a couple things, but I have nowhere near the the command of Spanish that I had at the end of those 2 classes because I haven't used it. And I live in a city, in a state where I could use Spanish every single day. And it's the same thing is true, though. I talk about Spanish, but the same thing is true for what I studied in history and English and, algebra and trigonometry. Schools do the best they can, or let me retract that. I don't think they do the best they can. Schools should be doing the best they can to prepare kids for life. That doesn't mean that every kid's going to be able to, do trigonometry at the same rate. Doesn't mean that every kid's going to walk out of there with the same understanding or love of poetry or history or any number of things. But if you give them a broad-based tool set, then the idea is that when they go out into the world, they'll at least be able to work more specifically towards whatever it is they want to do. But the world's changing.
Yeah.
The jobs that we used to try to prepare people for, the jobs we used to try to prepare people for, some of them don't really exist. And certainly not the same way that we've done it. So it's one of the reasons why, don't get me wrong, I'm going to bitch and moan about the upcoming election and talk about how important it is to vote and specifically to vote in these big elections. But it's also important to vote in the small elections too, because a lot of what really impacts us happens at the city council level, happens at the state board of education level, happens at the school district board of education level. And if you just, and it needs to be that way, because if we just had like a national standard curriculum, well, then there would be no need for state boards of education or local school boards of education. Just be like, here's what the government says you're going to teach, and then you teach it. But we know it's more than that. And so I'm not going to pretend to know what the solutions are any better, and certainly not better than you or somebody who's involved in this. But I think part of it has to do with changing curriculum so that we're focused more on how to think than what to think, so that we're focused on critical thinking, because that serves as a foundation for almost everything that we're going to learn. I can't think of too many things where it wouldn't be beneficial to have the basics of critical thinking and skepticism down.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. Just quick note on that, teaching the critical thinking. One little project I have my students do is get them to research and debunk conspiracy theories that exist out there.
Nice.
At least I started doing that until it started backfiring and they started going down the rabbit hole. And I think I converted a few people into flat earthers, something along the way. So, I'm not sure I'm the best guy to be teaching your children over here in the States. So I apologize to every U.S. citizen. Sorry about that.
I don't think you necessarily all of us apology, because you're not the only one pointing them to information. And I have a family member who is not completely convinced that the earth isn't flat. So it started to hit pretty close to home.
Good times. Yeah. Sorry to hear that, buddy.
All right, Danny, who's hanging up on whom here?
Could you ask that one more time for me, please?
Which one of us is hanging up on the other? Am I going to hang up on you, or are you going to hang up on me? Oh, cheeky bastard. Got me to restate it just so he could hang up on me while I was talking. Perfect. Well played.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.